Tom Bower just cracked one of the biggest royal mysteries of the decade. And no, this isn't some internet rumour or tabloid chatter. His is a real, traceable puzzle hiding in plain sight. Meghan Markle's true age. According to Bower, the story the world was told about Meghan, how she was born, how she rose to fame, hasn't matched the official records he uncovered. The deeper he dug, the stranger the timeline got. A father's memory didn't line up. A 1997 magazine entry threw the math completely off, and documents that should have confirmed her age. They only raised more questions. Bower wasn't trying to expose anyone, but piece by piece he uncovered something royal. PR never expected anyone to notice. The Meghan Markle the palace introduced may not be the same Meghan the records describe. If her age is off by even a few years, then everything built around that number or Hollywood career, her royal entrance, even her pregnancies, needs a fresh look. This isn't gossip. This is documented. This is testimony. This is the timeline starting to crack. Most fathers talk about their daughters with nostalgia, childhood memories, milestones, unforgettable moments. But when Thomas Markle spoke about Meghan, his tone was different. Heavy, deliberate, airful. Less like a parent reminiscing, more like someone setting the record straight before it becomes history. He described her childhood in detail. The schools she attended, the years she performed in theatre, the age she started taking acting seriously. But these memories didn't match the age Meghan publicly claimed at the time. Events said to have happened in her late teens or 20s, according to her father, happened earlier, or later, but definitely not according to the palace timeline. He didn't shout. He didn't accuse. He just laid out the facts. The Meghan he raised didn't line up with the Meghan the world met. And then came a quiet but explosive hint. Her official birth year may have been adjusted, coming from her father, the man who held her as a newborn, who documented every milestone with photos and dates. That statement lands differently. It isn't gossip. It's a first-hand challenge to her public identity. And then came the document that changed everything. In the March 1997 issue of 17 magazine, buried on page 90, among dozens of aspiring young faces, one line stood out. Meghan Markle, age 21. Simple, ordinary, easy to overlook. But for Bower, it was a crack in the story that couldn't be ignored. But when you do the math, the whole story starts to tilt. If Meghan was really born in 1981, she would have been 15 years old in 1997, not 21. That's a 6-year difference. Not a typo, not rounding 6 years. And here's the kicker. This number wasn't whispered online or debated in forums. It was printed, published, and distributed nationwide years before Meghan became a duchess. Years before anyone had a reason to question her age. One little detail, and suddenly the timeline doesn't add up. If the magazine was right, everything shifts. Her schooling, her early acting roles, even the age she entered the royal family, all of it moves. This wasn't speculation. This was ink on paper, a record frozen in time, untouched by later fame or PR. For Bower, this wasn't just evidence, it was a turning point. Once you see age 21 printed beside a girl who should have been 15, you can no longer assume the official story tells the full truth. Something somewhere had been rewritten. And the question naturally follows, why adjust an age in the first place? That's where the real investigation begins. From there, the timeline split in two, the official version and the implied reality. Official records say Meghan was born in 1981, making her 44 in 2025. That's the story the palace told. The biographies repeated. The public accepted when she joined the royal family. But the magazine suggests a different truth. If she was 21 in 1997, her birth year lands around 1975 or 1976, putting her closer to 50 today. That 6-year gap doesn't just change a number, it changes the lens through which we see her entire life. When she graduated, when she started acting, even her age when she met Prince Harry. Suddenly, instead of a 36-year-old actress entering the royal world, it's a woman in her early 40s. A shift that could have dramatically affected public perception, media narratives, and even palace messaging. 2 birth years, 2 Megans. Which one reflects the real woman and which one reflects the image? And if questions about her age weren't enough, the story surrounding Archie's birth pushed the timeline into new territory. Bauer's report claimed that the details released about the delivery didn't just sound polished. Sounded constructed. According to sources familiar with Portland Hospital, the official version in Prince Harry's memoir didn't match standard procedure. He described a serene cinematic scene, dim lights, calm energy, 2 epidurals, smooth labour, and the couple heading home within 2 hours. But insiders say, the moment you hit 2 epidurals, the story starts to wobble and home. In 2 hours, breaks completely. This is no rumour anymore, it's protocol. And the protocol doesn't match the royal script. Doctors point to several red flags. Epidurals aren't given twice like painkillers, they're continuous. 2 separate doses. Nearly impossible. High-risk pregnancies like the one Meghan's age placed her in require strict monitoring. Hospitals don't release patients that quickly, especially with potential complications like high blood pressure or preeclampsia. The drive from Portland Hospital to Frogmore Cottage is about an hour. 2 hours total for delivery, recovery, evaluation, discharge, and transport impossible. And the cosy spare scene, ATA tubs, candles, birthing balls wouldn't be allowed under high-risk supervision. Safety always comes first. Piece by piece, the official story drifts from reality, softened, shaped, edited, until it barely resembles a standard medical experience. And if the birth story showed signs of rewriting, it wasn't surprising, it mirrored the same patterns seen in her age timeline. Polished edges, missing steps, details that just don't line up. When public narratives start to twist like this, silence often speaks louder than any explanation. Sources say the palace never addressed the contradictions. No clarifications, no corrections. Just a steady insistence on the original version. Almost as if even the smallest admission would open the door to much bigger questions. Some insiders suggest this was deliberate. A controlled decision to keep the story neat, tidy, and protected from scrutiny. When timelines crack, management steps in. It happens in Hollywood. It happens in politics. And yes, it happens in royal circles. The goal is always the same: preserve the clean version. But a clean version only works if no one looks too closely. And in Meghan's case, the closer investigators dug, the more the seams began to show. The birth, the age, the records. Each piece had a small bend, a tiny adjustment, a detail that didn't sit comfortably with the rest. These weren't explosive accusations, they were subtle inconsistencies. The kind that don't shout, but slowly pile up. And when they pile up, the story stops feeling natural, it starts to feel arranged. And that brings us to the final chapter at a conclusion, but a realization. The truth might not live in the official lines. It might be in the faint, almost invisible ones beneath them. Every public figure carries 2 histories. One is written in ink, permanent official, locked into biographies and press releases. The other is written in pencil, adjusted, reshaped, softened, crafted to create the version the world is meant to see. With Meghan Markle, the ink and the pencil no longer match. The Age printed in 17 magazine, her father's memories. The medical timeline bending under scrutiny. The birth story polished until it gleams each. Piece stands alone, but together they form a picture that looks nothing like the flawless narrative the world was given. The truth isn't loud, it's subtle. It hides in math that doesn't add up, in dates that shift by years, in hospital procedures that contradict royal anecdotes. It hides in the silence between official statements and lived experience. And as Tom Bauer followed those faint clues, a shadow of a different timeline began to emerge. Older, sharper, far less curated. Maybe Meghan's story was never meant to deceive. Maybe it was meant to protect a career, protect an image, protect a version of herself that felt easier to carry into a new world. But pencil, no matter how softly applied, leaves pressure on the page. And when the light hits just right, those hidden lines start to show. Now that the light has shifted, the erased marks are becoming visible. Not enough to answer every question, not enough to solve everything, but enough to make it impossible to return to the simple story the world once accepted without hesitation. The story doesn't end here. It can't. Because once a timeline cracks, once ink and pencil collide, the truth doesn't disappear. It waits. And with every document rediscovered, every contradiction examined, one thing becomes clear. We are only at the beginning of understanding who Meghan Markle really is and which parts of her past were left in pencil, hoping no one would ever tilt the page toward the light.